let's try and dive into the influences, because you said earlier on in the podcast that you all have very different influences within the band, and it creates this nice, unique sound. Like, what sort of influences are they?
Oh man, just so eclectic. It's crazy. So I mean, I'll just kind of talk through the members, but yeah. So like Matt, for instance, huge Beatles fan. You know, very inspired by the Beatles, and you know, anything sort of in between. Really, he loves classical, jazz. You know, probably the most diverse musical taste I've ever come across. Jamie's influenced by anything from the 90s, really massive, you know, into his 90s bands, Oasis, Shed 7, you know, all that kind of stuff. He's really into that. And Sam probably quite similar. Ben loves his Northern Soul, massive Northern Soul head. You know, anything like that, he's there. Massive, and he loves Dire Straits as well. So massively into Dire Straits, one of his biggest influences. And for myself, I'm sort of similar to Matt, really. I love good songs. I look for, I don't know. I just I've always been influenced by quite good drummers. As being, you know, as obviously the drummer of our bands. You know, I love bands like the Foo Fighters. Massive Foos fan. Seen them live quite a few times. And yeah, just kind of everything really. You know, my granddad was a jazz drummer. Back in the olden days, and I was brought up on a lot of kind of jazz stuff, and he gave me my first kit when he developed really bad arthritis in his wrists, you know, a bit of a drummer's syndrome, but so he gave me a kit and sort of started teaching me some jazz stuff. So my roots are kind of, you know, quite into that kind of side of things. But yeah, just everything really. We just, you know, we just love good songs, you know. That's kind of where our influence comes from, really.
That's good. The jazz is a massive influence when it comes to good music. I'm a big jazz head. I love my jazz, my John Coltrane's and Nat King Cole's, and
definitely
Miles Davis and all that lot. Do you find that jazz drumming that you started with still comes through, or do you try and make it a little bit more modern in a sense of towards Foo Fighter, Izzy type vibe?
It's kind of like halfway house, isn't it? You know, we've got some stuff, you know, on the second record, especially that we've just finished recording. You know, there are big songs on there, big bangers. You know, I would sort of attribute to more kind of Foo Fighters kind of sound. That's just how we've evolved as a band, really. Some of our earlier stuff is a lot more dancey sort of drum patterns, which, you know, kind of originate from a lot of jazz type playing and jazz feel to stuff. So it definitely influences in what I do in my playing. You know, technical kind of hi-hat patterns and things like that kind of come from jazz kind of sort of stuff. But it's just been a big evolution for us, really. We've kind of, you know, we started out as this kind of dancey type band, and we just kind of evolved into a bit more of a kind of rock heavy kind of layered with sort of synthy type stuff. It's quite hard to describe, really, but that's sort of how we've kind of evolved, really.
Yeah, I think you can really tell. Like, I was, you know, really going through your album this morning over the last couple of days, and I was saying to Elliot, there's a couple of points in the album where it's sort of a new one would come on, and I had to sort of double check it hadn't sort of switched to another band at some point. It's like the fact that some of those songs come from the same band is amazing. You can really see a lot of different influences come through. But does that, like, I'm interested in like the songwriting process for that. Do you have, because some bands have like one very sole person that does it all, but is it quite collaborative from the beginning of writing songs as well to get those different influences in?
It's really collaborative, and I think that's kind of why there is so much diversity in the record, because there is 5 songwriters in the band. I mean, usually there's an idea, you know, usually there's a riff or a keyboard pattern or something that somebody has kind of started, you know, and it gets brought into the rehearsal room, you know, and then collectively as a collection of songwriters, it turns into the songs that we kind of know now. So yeah, it's all kind of, you know, it's all equally kind of written, the process. And we're quite strong believers in the songs wouldn't be the songs without the drums, without the bass, you know, each sort of person brings an element of songwriting to the song. So in that sense, we're all kind of the songwriters, really.
I really like that. I think it does come through, and there's a lot of bands that maybe wouldn't be able to put out an album as good because they get quite set in their ways and can do it that way. But you can really see there's a lot of different influences coming through.
There's no ego in our band. You know, we're quite level-headed in that sense, and you know, all we, you know, we're all musicians at the end of the day, and we want to put out the best record that we can, and the only way we'll do that is by pulling on the strengths of each other. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not the best lyricist. I don't massively input into the lyrics. I have on occasion, but I'm not going to sort of start kicking off about that, because it's part of the process, isn't it, of writing a record. My strengths are clearly on the drums, clearly on the sort of the drums and the bass and the kind of the rhythm of the songs. And likewise, Jamie couldn't put down great lyrics if he didn't have a great song to put over the top of. So it's just that process, isn't it?
Definitely. So do you do like all the producing as a band as well, or do you have a producer?
We have a producer. Yeah. So we work. We've had quite a few over the years, but we recently, for the record, for Mystery, we recorded that in Leeds with a guy called Andy Hawkins, who owns a studio called Nave in Leeds, and we've recorded album 2 there as well.
Cool.
So we work with him on our stuff at the moment. So yeah,
awesome. And he tries to pull together 5 different things and get it all in. Or do
Andy. Well, yeah, we kind of, when we did the first record, it was a real turning point for us, because it was the first time we worked with somebody who essentially kind of tore us apart a little bit. We prior to recording with Andy, the people that we've recorded with before just basically pressed record and let us do what we wanted to do, which wasn't always the best thing for us. We were quite, I don't know, looking back now, it just created an environment where everything just kind of went onto the record, and it just was a bit of a mess. But Andy was the first person who said, no, that shit, that's coming out. This is probably better. Let's restructure this over here and whatever. And it turned into a much more, I don't know, just a better process for us. And we kind of changed our whole sort of thinking and approach to recording a record. And we did that for this second record as well. And Andy just tells us exactly, he's very blunt. He just tells us how it is. And it works for us. We need that as a band. So
we've had a lot of people on that have said very similar things about having that almost authoritative figure that's been about in the scene a bit longer, and they kind of can direct it. I think Salpa said that their lead like producer on their most recent records kind of helped them trim the fat. They kind of like helped them like kind of take out some of the parts which they felt kind of they weren't as necessary as maybe the synth being stronger, or the things like that. So have you found that that's the type of thing that your producers kind of helped you lot do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Begin was one of our sort of bigger songs off the first record, and the original version of that was, I think it was about 4.5-5 minutes long.
Really?
And we went in with Andy. He said, there's some great parts here. If you want to get it on the radio, and if you want to, kind of turn it into the pop song that you probably want it to do, then we're going to have to look at kind of taking some stuff out and restructuring some stuff. And we did it. And, it turned out to be a great song for us. And, that was Andy's influence in that process. So, yeah.